Top of the hour, I'd say let's go ahead and dive into this. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Insider Sources. Today is actually our very first edition. Insider Sources is brought to you by Trusted Advisor Association and powered by Zenith Information Systems. Just as a quick introduction, my name is Matthew Hoffman, and I'm the founder of Trusted Advisor Association. I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Jeff Sesser on the opposite coast. Jeff is the owner and EVP at Zenith Information Systems. Jeff and I have been talking about doing this for a long time, talking to our friends at Savitsky Satin, excited to do this with them. Our goal with all of these live streams is really to bring in experts like Jay and Rachel today, institutions and companies that are at the center of a changing industry, very much kind of a community of insider sources, hence the name of our live stream here. Primarily, we're going to focus on advisors with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients in the entertainment space. Jay and Rachel are definitely those. So I think that being said, I will turn it over to you, Jeff, to introduce yourself, introduce Jay and Rachel here, and then we can dive into the questions.
Thanks, Matt. As Matt said, I'm obviously part of Zenith Information Systems, and we provide an accounting, bill pay, cash management solution for business management and family offices, but that's not why we're here today. We're here today at the premiere of our Insider Sources to take in the experiences of our first two insiders, Rachel Martinez, partner, and Jay Barr, Chief Operating Officer of Savitsky Satin Bacon Bucci, definitely a premier business management firm. We want to get a little bit of bios here, so I'm going to ask Jay something about yourself, and we want to get some background about you. So can you kind of fill in everybody how your experience running all those ice cream shops with 17-year-old employees prepared you to run one of the largest firms in business management?
Well, that goes back quite a few years, Jeff. So I was a little bit younger, but I did spend 15 years with owning the 50 Ben & Jerry's franchise stores in California. And at the highest point had about 300 employees, and a good number of them were teenagers, and a lot, certainly, we didn't call them millennials back then, but that's the age group. And it is a totally different methodology of dealing with employees when you're dealing at that level. But it did give me the experience of handling a large group of people, both on the hiring side and in some cases on the termination side. And that led me about 17 years ago to start working with Savitsky Satin Bacon back then. The Bucci was added several years ago. Really, it's all about dealing with people and employees. So all my past history and years of working have always been working with a lot of different people and using that experience to try to get the best that you can get from individuals. Not always an easy task, but something that we strive for all the time.
Thanks, Jay. And then Rachel, for me, I mean, you came on the scene in a sudden flash. And maybe that's because, you'll laugh at this, that is, as a technology provider, I find you holding my feet to the fire all the time. So maybe that's part of the flash. But obviously your journey wasn't in one day. Can you give us briefly about, you have a unique set of clients and a unique background. Can you give us like a little quick overview?
Sure. I've worked in business management and family office my entire career. I think that's one kind of unique perspective that I have, that this is really all I've ever done from every level in business management, from account manager to accountant manager, and now as a partner. I've been with Savitsky Satin Bacon Bucci for 12 years now. So not quite a flash, but I understand where you're coming from there. But and it's really it's given me a unique perspective because I've watched the industry change and changed with it.
That change is a great segue, actually, because obviously everyone's facing a lot of change. And my first question to Jay, I think, as the operating officer, is, what were your real challenges that began mid-March for you and the firm?
Well, it was interesting that one of the challenges that we thought was going to be the greatest challenge was on the technology side. Fortunately, right now we're about 80 employees, but for the past several years, we've given remote access to certainly all the partners, the managers, in some cases, staff accountants. So a lot of our people already had some remote access, and that always seemed to work well. But those were at times where they still came to the office every day and they worked remotely at home or on the weekends. So when it came time for us to actually, test this, we had to quickly pivot to make sure everybody had remote access. And we actually were able to accomplish that in somewhere between 7 and 10 days. And we did one test day to see how it worked. Everything worked fine. And literally the next week everybody was working remotely. So the technology challenge was not nearly as great as we had envisioned. And our largest goal at that point was to make sure that everybody had a duplicate workstation and setup at home that mirrored exactly what they had in the office. That in some cases we had employees that said, well, I've got a laptop at home, I want to work on my laptop. And we did not allow that. The goal was to give everybody the same set of hardware that they had, so that we would eliminate the hardware technology issue. And fortunately, not that we haven't had some things happen here and there, but really not a lot more than we would have had if people had been in the office, because when you have that many people working, there's always some technology issue. But the biggest challenge was, and it wasn't unexpected, it just was a lot to deal with, is on the employee side, when you have 80 different people coming from every background, age, gender, you name it, you have to stop for a moment and realize that everybody's got an individual situation. So that was really, and that's something that I've done over the years, is staying in close contact with people. And that really made things a lot easier, because I started from the very beginning, making regular phone calls to people, checking in. And the more you talk to people, the more you find out that everybody's got some individual situation. Some people reacted very, very well to working, remotely. They didn't have to drive an hour each way. They loved that. But as time went on, the whole emotional toll that it took on some people, you had to be aware of those types of things and try to talk people through things on a day-to-day basis. Some cases I found out that I had young people still living at home, working in their bedrooms. That's not an easy situation to wake up every morning and know that you're sort of limited to where you go. And even though they didn't have to drive to work, it became, in many cases, emotionally very difficult for certain people. So spent a lot of time every week making phone calls, staying on top of things. We have employees that are parents and have kids, and now their kids are now getting homeschooled and working remotely themselves. And now the parents have to be on a different schedule. They're trying to work, trying to maintain the family. That was a challenge. And a lot of it is just being open to saying to somebody, listen, you don't have to work. If you work 9 to 6 when you were in the office, you don't necessarily have to work 9 to 6 when you're at home. Sometimes you got to take care of your family. You take care of your family first. And then all of my people really stepped up to the plate. But every single day it was, fighting. And this week alone, I had 2 employees both tell me that their grandmothers passed away early in the week. One of them, fortunately, the grandmother was here, so they had been in somewhat contact. The other one, the grandmother lived overseas, and she told me that, she was very sad because she couldn't actually go to the funeral, and she would have had we been in a whole different environment. So a lot of it comes down to really staying in touch with your employees and being there, being a good listener, changing your systems a little bit to allow them to be more efficient, not treating everybody exactly the same way and having the same expectations. And frankly, just being a good listener really makes, from my standpoint, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, maybe you saw me laugh there because I'm working from my bedroom, but I'm not 17 or 18 years old. And just a real quick follow-up, Jay, would you say then your business processes basically remain the same and much more employee focused to make the transition, but your processes worked even though the folks were all remote?
The processes fortunately worked almost flawlessly. It was interesting because if you would have had asked me a week before COVID even became known or anything had been talked about and said, what do you think about the idea of having your entire office working remotely? Are you up for that? I would have said, no, 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 because I would have said it's impossible for everybody to be as efficient. You can't keep track of people. So I would have been a definite naysayer when it came to that. But when we were all of a sudden forced to do it, because the health and safety and well-being of our people was really the foremost thing that we were thinking about at that point. And it continues to be the same thing, because we're not even talking about coming back to the office until things really settle down, which at this point looks like it's going to be after the first of the year. So going from saying there's no way this is going to work, and all of a sudden seeing that it worked perfectly. And the only thing we allow is, and we have brand new office space, you know, we have like 17,000 square feet in Century City. There's only several people that are allowed to be in the office at any time. Frankly, it's one at a time. And on the operations, it's making sure mail deliveries, FedExes, certain deliveries get taken care of, but nobody else is allowed back to the office. Frankly, it's been about 6.5 months. I've not been in the office one time during this whole process. So it's we've been very clear.
Later for you.
Say that again?
Save that thought. I have a follow-up for you in a little bit.
Rachel, it kind of leads me to a question, I guess, with you and your team and also your clients. Now that we're, say, 6 months into this thing, do you feel like you're kind of in the groove now with them? Is everyone like pretty comfortable and kind of situated? And I was kind of curious to know about what your plan to go back to the office is. And maybe you guys are kind of holding off on that, you know, till there's a little bit more clarity. But then also, this is like a triple part question. So
Sure.
I'm just curious to hear also, you know, not only internally, but then how is this affecting kind of how you interact with your clients?
Sure. I think first of all, but thankful every day, but about how this pivot went and the way we've been able to utilize technology, I think was a pleasant surprise. And it was one that our ops team, you know, the team that Jay leads, made this so incredibly easy. I think we were all skeptical about how well it would work and whether or not productivity would stay the same and how we would be able to manage our teams. But luckily, you know, we had the infrastructure in place to be able to work from home, and it was very, very seamless. And the, you know, the tech side that they laid out, that was certainly part of it, but it also things that we already had in place that we were able to start utilizing more. Tools like Microsoft Teams that have kept, that we're all using probably 10 times more than we ever did, that keep this constant running dialogue between the employees. And then just being very, very regimented and deliberate about the way that we're communicating with our employees on a work level basis. Meaning it's a lot, it used to be very easy to monitor people's workload because they were there when I was leaving, and I could see that they were maybe had more or less than they could handle at that time. But we're all now working on our own, and it requires an added level of communication with people at all different levels to be able to know how everybody's doing, because part of working at home is not having the separation between work and home. And I think that that being able to communicate with the employees so easily has really made a difference in making sure that the teams are working efficiently, but also help in a healthy way. At the client level, it's very interesting. You're right. Business managers are notorious for being available to their clients 24/7, and I certainly have an element of that to my relationships with my clients. It's not so much that we see them less, because really our face-to-face meetings were only a few times a year with most clients. But what we have is this added level of urgency from the clients. You know, it's like they've either had projects delayed or, you know, maybe even canceled. They have a real sense and feeling of financial insecurity, and we are the first person that they want to talk to about those types of things. So there's this added level of urgency that they want a very, very comprehensive picture of how they're doing financially and need help with more financial decisions than they ordinarily would. But then there's also this added level of casualness, in the sense that it used to be that, you know, if I was taking a call with a client, it was kids out of the room and quiet, and you know, it was as if I was in the office. And now everybody knows that everybody's at home and our kids are all home. So if my kid asks me how to spell a word while I'm on the phone with a client, I say, excuse me, and I spell the word. You know, it's like there's a much more of a blend between family and clients right now. And I think that I don't think that'll go away. I think it's actually added, it's added a little bit of casualness to the relationship that I enjoy. And then, you know, back to that insecurity with the client, you know, they're making financial decisions in a whole different way right now. There's a sense that they need to be more conservative, but they're also kind of swinging wildly on what they do and on what they want to do. Flee California, you know, buy houses other places, all sorts of things that require in-depth conversations. So it's really just being available for them to talk through these issues and to help them get to what makes the most sense, and then being able to give them all the information that they need and want. And you know, that's why we're actually seeing them, I think, a little bit more, because we're seeing them virtually. I haven't had this many Zoom meetings with clients in my entire career, more Zoom meetings than I ever had client meetings. And that's because everybody's so into Zoom and, you know, these video meetings where it would normally just be a phone call and I would email them some reports and we'd have things to go over and we'd talk about it. We're jumping on these video calls a whole lot more.
You're not Zoomed out yet.
No.
Good. All right.
Hey, Rachel, do you see those Zoom meetings continuing into the future?
I do.
Regardless? Yeah.
I do. I have clients who have made, I mean, it's very interesting. I've had clients who've made sweeping changes in the way that they are going to run their businesses and their careers, and plan to, I mean, a lot of clients really have bought homes outside of LA and don't have any immediate plans to resume work the way that they did before all of this. And I think that there will be a lot more remote working and a lot more utilization of technology to do that. No matter when and how the world goes back to what we think of as normal, I think that we will continue to utilize these tools.
Yeah, I belong to a lot of organizations and had this type of meeting, these kind of discussions. And like my first question to you, Jay, what had you done? It's interesting, no matter how many times I hear that discussion, the answers are always different. And the reason I stopped you from going on, I want to ask you a very particular question, because in all the other conferences and meetings I've had, no one has a concrete concept of what they're going to do next. I hear, I think, we might, we're wondering if. So from your perspective, you mentioned office space and things like that. Has you and the firm come to any concrete concepts moving forward whenever that moving forward happens? I mean, it could happen now, right? I mean, we're in this, the last 3 months more like a cruising mode, you know, where everything's working fine, but we need to make concrete decisions at some point. Have you gotten there yet?
Well, we actually have. We spend a good deal of our week talking about not today. We think about today, but we also think about what's going to happen tomorrow, 6 months tomorrow, and a year from tomorrow, and going forward. Because we've always focused on, you know, trying to find the best efficiencies and technologies of doing things. So we've always tried to be at the forefront. But in order to do that, you have to think a little bit ahead. So interestingly enough, we've been very fortunate during this COVID period from a business standpoint, which has meant to us that we've actually had to hire new people. So that was a whole process in itself, because everybody that has started working for us, and there's been between 15 and 20 people that we've added to the staff since March. Every one of those people has been added by some remote. I've never met any of these people in real life. So, you know, the interviews were FaceTimes or Zoom meetings, phone calls, terminations are done the same way. We can talk about that in a bit. But as we started to realize that we were in this for the long term, we started realizing, and we were adding people, we started looking at our current office physical space and going, if all of a sudden tomorrow we decided if to everybody come back to work, if COVID magically went away, you know, we would not have enough space for everybody to come back to work. So we've already anticipated the fact that not everybody's coming back to the office in the traditional sense. We have already spoken to several people who we, as I mentioned earlier, some of the conversations that I have on a day-to-day basis with people, actually figuring out who would be the happiest never coming back to the office, or coming back in a very sort of sparing sense. They're not anxious to be there every single day. And we've already earmarked a number of people that we basically have already committed to and said, listen, when this is over, you can work from home for as long as you want to work, as long as it continues to work. So the only way we would be able to accommodate everybody is to take on more office space, and we're not going to do that financially. And knowing that we can do it, you know, and having a certain number of people working remotely, we've already made that decision to do that. And then there's the people that that I also know that are having a very difficult time emotionally staying at home every single day, that are dying to get back to the office, dying to get back into traffic. Sounds funny, but there are those people. And those people, I know they're going to get a chance to come back and work in the office. And then there's the people sort of in between, where we'll do some type of, we haven't figured it out person by person yet, because we're not close enough to that yet, where there's going to be potentially office sharing, staggered schedules. But for sure, we are not going to be back. I will never use the word never, because I don't like that word, but we don't anticipate going back in any way, shape, or form of the way it was. We're very satisfied with the way things are going. We worked very hard to let our people acclimate to the systems. And then there are some cases where some people cannot. There have been people that have not been able to come on and develop remotely. And in some of those cases, we've actually had to, you know, I'll say change the relationship, meaning that they didn't work for us anymore. Had nothing to do with they were not good people or not good workers or weren't smart. It just had to do that they weren't able to be within the system that we've created. And we just made the decision for their well-being as well as ours, because if we knew it wasn't going to work long-term, it made no sense to have them stay, give them an opportunity to go other places. But we definitely, our plan is to continue to use technology, continue to use remote working to whatever extent possible, to allow us to, number one, save money on rent. Number two, give people a chance to work and be happy in their environment. And frankly, during the last several months, I've had several people call me and say, listen, my parents have a home in Florida. I have a place in Colorado. You choose it. And they say, is it all right if I work from there? And I've said, frankly, I wouldn't know if you work from there now anyway, because I haven't seen these people in 7 months. And I say, if you can get there and be safe and healthy and give us the same level of service that you're giving us, by all means do it. And people really thrive in that environment because they feel as though they have more control over their lives, as opposed to being stuck into only one way of doing things. The goal is to think, really think ahead, not just talk about thinking ahead.
Yeah, very interesting that your concrete solutions came from your own firm's growth, limited space, right? So it helped you move ahead and make those decisions quickly, more than other folks that I've spoken with.
Right, and sometimes those things, you know, things are thrust upon you and you have to deal with them. But again, we've been very fortunate. Not everybody, but most of my people have been able to, I'll use the word thrive under this environment. Our work is getting done. Our business is still going well. So we consider ourselves very fortunate. And anytime one of my employees asks me about coming back, when are we coming back? What is the plan? It's the same answer 100 out of 100 times. We're not going back until it's safe for everybody, because we're not going to put at risk them, their families, other employees. The goal is going to be, let's do this when it really makes sense for everybody. There's always going to be inherent risk no matter when you do it. But for us, if it's working and there's no reason to rush back to the office, then it would make no sense just to do that, because the inherent risks are too great.
Yeah, agreed.
Rachel, I'm curious, how do you manage communication with your team? Is it all email? Do you guys use Slack? I'm just curious, do you have like a standing daily call? Do you check in with them one by one?
It's a little bit of both. So I do, for the wider team, we've got them broken into kind of level groups, and we have regular check-ins that we use. We do video check-ins with Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is our default kind of communication. Everybody now, everybody on my team has it on their phone. They've got it on their computers, and that is open all day. And it feels a lot like we're in the same room together. And it's a running stream, multiple groups and teams speaking at any given time about various client matters, and collaborating that way. So that's kind of the informal. The informal is this all day, every day Teams chatter. And then we have more formalized check-ins too. So that, those technologies we already had in place, and now we're just utilizing them a lot more, and for a wide variety of things. There's also like some fun firm-wide team chats that our ops team throws out every Friday, and it sounds, you wouldn't think, but I think it adds a lot. I think everybody kind of just being informal and chatting about random stuff every Friday on that stream lets them blow off steam and keeps people kind of closer to one another, and is a good way to keep people connected to one another. But it's really utilizing the technologies to be able to have great communication, and then some some phone check-ins and things like that. But we're all connected all day, every day.
Nice. What about, I'm also curious, again, kind of on the client side, what about client acquisition and onboarding, and how that's changed at all maybe over the past 6 months, just how you've gone about doing that? I mean, I'm assuming you've probably signed clients and again, never, have met them yet.
Yeah, that is true. And we have, and you're right. It's normally at the very least, the very initial meeting is in person, or at least the second one. And then we usually have like a big kickoff meeting where we kind of go through everything and review all the documents and build an onboarding plan. And we've really just pivoted to having that all be remote. So certainly a ton of potential client meetings that have been done, on Zoom or WebEx or whatever it is that whoever's hosting has, and that those have all worked well. And then and then the onboarding process, it has all been remote. And thankfully, we have our ops team, because they're there's certain things that can't be done remotely. There's things like bank signature cards and things that have to be paper, or a lot of kind of administrative stuff that if we didn't have that team there to support us, would have made onboarding new clients extremely difficult. But with them behind us, it made it so that we were really, to make it seamless. It's really been seamless, which is great, because clients have the expectation that it will be. We've had 6 months to figure out the tech side. So people we've kind of all burned off the excuse of, it's pandemic times. That excuse is burned off, and people expect, the high level of service that they would have expected otherwise.
Sure.
Hey, Rachel, real quick, are you using Microsoft Teams just internally? And then something different for the client meetings?
Yeah. Client meetings, we're using Zoom, and internally we're using Teams.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I will say too, I just want to add in too that on the operations side, we do allow one at a time in the office, and that person that's there is responsible for making sure on the technology side, if there's an issue, a computer freezes, there needs to be a reboot, some issue comes up that remote's not working, there's always somebody there during working hours that can handle that problem. And rarely does it ever go more than sometimes it's just a reboot, but we've been very fortunate that that's keeping us flowing. So it's not like there's nobody there. And because with working remotely, everybody remotes into a workstation at work. So there's got to be somebody there that can oversee that hardware side.
Hey,
Yeah, it's
Jay,
been remarkable how well everything has gone. I don't think anybody could have guessed or anticipated that the technology side would have gone this smoothly. It made the whole transition to working from home so much easier.
Jay, real quick, do you see that as we start to come up into October and changing the clocks, would you actually change the hours of the single person within the building not to be there at sundown, for example? Has that crossed your mind, how to handle something like that, since you only have a single person in a pretty large suite?
I haven't thought that through at the time change. A lot will be dependent on that individual, you know, what they're there. They're all fairly high level people. And again, it would come down to if they didn't feel comfortable being there, we would work around that. So it comes down to the same thing. I would never ask somebody to do something that felt it would put them at risk. Fortunately, we're in a large, you know, building in Century City. Security is very good, continues to be very good. We haven't worried too much about that aspect of it. And as Rachel just said, I mean, the technology for us as a whole has been so seamless and so good. I haven't heard one person out of 80 people that has contacted me and said, I can't work in this environment because of the technology. You know, I can't get my work done, you know, because things are slow. And then there may be a situation where their home internet, you know, may be slow. And even when I hear that, so if I'm hearing somebody's having an issue that seems to supersede what we can do, my first question is who's your provider? What kind of service do you have? And we will help if somebody's got, you know, if it's slow, we will have our technology people log into them at home, help them decide, do they need, you know, better Wi-Fi. In some cases, it's been, you know, there's been actually several cases where the Wi-Fi at home was getting cooked because their kids were all on it because everybody was working on it at the same time. And, you know, and we had a, you know, we said, listen, we will help upgrade, get what you need so that everybody can get what they want, because that's going to happen more and more. I mean, people, even as people work more remotely, a husband and a wife could be working in the same house. So we have to be aware of what the speeds that we need to accomplish what we do.
Jay, you touched on technology a couple times. I'm curious, you know, time doesn't stop, just technology roadmap wise, just kind of even without COVID, right? Are there any technology changes or kind of implementations that are up next for you guys?
We look at technology literally every single day from almost every aspect of it. So, I mean, our goal is to continue to stay on top of whatever new is out there, with our primary goal as being security. We never let the technology supersede security unless there's nowhere else to go. So we're very in tune with security comes first, and then we build down from that. But the good news is, and again, if you go back with our firm, let's say even 5 years ago, it would have been an easy conversation for most of the parties to say, listen, we're not going into the cloud because we have servers in the office and we want everything on our servers because we can control it. We have a great firewall. So we say, no, we're not going into we're not going to use the cloud because it's not secure. Well, the problem with that mentality is, as days and weeks and years go by, the cloud actually is where everybody's going. So, in some form or another. So if you stand on ceremony and say, no, security is the utmost importance and we're not going into the cloud ever, then you're going to give up on a lot of things that are out there that are in the cloud and accessibilities to the cloud. So we are continuing to explore those types of things. And we do our best to maintain, we do daily security updates in terms of how our people respond, making sure, it's the same thing that most firms probably do, but educating our people, because there's still bad guys out there, still people trying to steal stuff, still people sending emails that have links to bad places. And we've never been hacked before, so we've been very lucky. But our people are very, very smart about what they do and what they don't do and what they see. It's not impossible to trick somebody, but our people are trained to look at certain things. And I would say every single day I'll see an email from somebody saying, I got this email, is it safe to click on? And we'll look at it, and 99% of the time it's not safe. We delete it and we're done. So I think the technology side, in terms of looking at new softwares for everything, whether it's your timekeeping system, your billing system, your accounting system, whatever you're looking for, we're always looking for the next best thing that's out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Rachel, I know we did a similar talk a couple years ago, and I remember one of the things that stuck with me from that was I think that you said that you had a group of clients that were like YouTube influencers, which I thought was super fascinating. And I was talking to somebody else, a different business manager recently, and she had some clients that were mostly on TikTok. And I think she was kind of scrambling because this is about a month ago when the TikTok ban was, I mean, it's still in full effect, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious, even kind of bucketing clients, I think it's pretty typical in business management firms. There are different specialties, you know, different kind of groups of clients, but I don't know. I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question if there are just any anecdotes for things that are cropping up, you know, new types of clients that are coming in and just the challenges that are facing them, or, you know, anything, differences in kind of how you communicate with these different, you know, client types.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I still work with a tremendous amount of clients that are in the digital space and that are doing, that are either influencers, YouTubers, and people that go across multiple kind of formats of the digital space, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you know, whatever it might be. It's been an interesting time, and it's not so much been COVID related for that side of the business. A big part of the change in the last 6 months, or maybe even, I guess, 3 months in that world, has been the rise of kind of the social justice movement happening in our country, and how that's affected the way that brands are spending advertising dollars in the influencer space, and the tone. You know, it's when there's as much going on in the world as there is, a lot of times influencers are much less comfortable selling a product, using their voice to sell a product, when they could be using their voice for important social justice type communication with their fan base. So there's just kind of a respect towards the tone of their content, and not wanting it to be kind of so much connected with brands at this moment in time, which means that it goes back to that same kind of financial insecurity feeling that the clients have when they're turning down work, and they want to know that they're okay to do that. And so that's kind of been my role on the digital side, is just helping them navigate that. Mm-hmm.
I get a sense that a lot of them too, I think there's so much happening with the platforms, and I continue, like every day, we post a lot of it, hear stories of celebrities branching into different businesses and like really diversifying, thinking about their investments, I think, in a way that they didn't before, like exactly like you just said. And I know that business managers can tend to get pretty involved in that, and kind of helping even I wouldn't say maybe at the business model, but kind of helping them scope out. Is that something that you see also with your clients, just in terms of kind of diversifying and what they're looking at?
Absolutely, especially with the influencer clients, because they are approached a lot to get in at the ground floor on kind of venture type things, and to be like an ambassador of various products, and sometimes that comes with an equity stake or some sort of arrangement in that kind of makes that part of their core business, and their face then becomes tied to whatever it is that they're doing. And it's helping them navigate that and figure out what that's going to look like, but also how big of a piece of their business do they want that type of work to be, and giving them a real top level view in terms of structuring that.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, I'll keep going unless.
I like where you're headed.
So here's something else. The four of us spoke yesterday, but I don't remember seeing a whole lot of COOs at business management firms. And so much of this is talked about your operations. It sounds like you guys are really well prepared this year. And I think it sounds like a lot of that obviously is on the operations side. Jay, I'm just curious how, I guess, has that COO role, I'm not sure, how long has that been, yours and at the firm? Something, I think it sounds like it's a pretty unique position and team to have at a firm like that.
Well, it's been the only role that I've served in since I've been at Savitsky going on 17 years. Originally, what happened was back in the day when George Savitsky, who founded the firm, was getting ready to, and he was the managing partner back then, and he was getting ready to say, I've sort of had enough of this. And frankly, at that point, none of the other partners wanted to take on that role. And because of my experiences in the past of running, small to mid-sized businesses, working a lot with employees, I got lucky, got connected with George one day. We had a 2-hour lunch, and we both totally clicked with each other. He's like an amazing, man. I didn't know much about business management at that point, and I came in one day and I started like almost 17 years ago with a clean desk, a clean computer, and had to figure out really what that role was going to entail. And I spent, and continue to spend, because it changes day by day, years of thinking, and fortunately I've fallen in love with business management. If you ever hear me actually do an interview with anybody, all I do is talk about why business management is like the best possible career to go into. So, but I've spent a lot of years, using my skill set, which is really all about people and relationships. Mm-hmm. And because the firm was open to having somebody, I'm a CPA by trade, so that's where my education and my, back way back in the day, that I used to be an accountant, but I hated just being a pure accountant. I needed to do something that, at least for me, had a little more fun to it. And we always talk about business management as sort of being accountants with like personalities.
Yeah.
So I've been able to use those skill sets, because to me, everything's about relationships. And virtually everybody that I started working with at Savitsky on the outside, it's been about the continued relationship with them. And on the inside, when it comes to employees, I have, I've hired well over 100 employees since I've been with Savitsky. Unfortunately, I have, let go probably equal as many, because as much as I love people, I still focus on the fact that, because it's so funny, because whenever I'm doing a termination, and I actually did one on Tuesday with a young man that worked for us just for 7 months, did not have a lot of experience. I knew that coming in, came in at the worst possible time, because he literally was with us for a week in the office, then COVID hit. We spent a tremendous amount of time trying to mentor and get him where he needed to be. I had multiple conversations with him. And it became apparent, over the last month or so, that he just wasn't grasping what we needed to grasp. So when I was talking to both his supervisors, a staff accountant and a senior accountant manager, I just needed to make the decision that it wasn't going to be good long-term for him, and certainly long-term for us. So I had to make that phone call on Tuesday and talk to him. And it was a very nice young man. He handled it perfectly. I told him I would still be willing to help him, because I think he's got a place out there where we actually have a call scheduled tomorrow just to talk about what his future might look like, because he wants my take. So it really comes down to, you want your people to be happy first. If they're happy and they do a good job, I'm not going to be happy. If they're happy and I'm not happy, it's still not going to work out. So you have to look at every situation individually. And, being able to not be spending my day dealing with client matters. And I still get involved occasionally day-to-day with some client stuff, because I do have a background in, 401k plans and, and other things, and a lot of personnel issues, so employee issues for our clients. but it gives me the chance to spend a tremendous amount of time working very closely on how the operation should work and how it affects the employees every single day. So it's a position, and now I actually have two full-time people that work with me. I have a director of operations who's full-time. I have an assistant director of operations, because the operations side, when you have a large firm, we feel extremely important. And if you're bogged down with some of the things that the pure business management people have to deal with every day, you lose sight of those things. So I can look outside, both, from the outside, and look at the inside, and put all those things together to try to help develop a plan that works good for us, good for the employee. For the most part, it does. And when it doesn't, somebody has to make those tough decisions sometimes. And I've talked to a lot of other, firms and people. I've got a lot of friends in the business management community. Sometimes people never get terminated. Sometimes people never get asked to leave because there's a fear of many different things, and they just never do that. And those people stay on forever. And really, the people are never really, certainly from the firm side, they're not totally satisfied. So, when it comes to running a large organization, you have to look at all the different pieces and sometimes make those tough decisions. So, but again, we survive, business managers survive off of billing, whether it's pure hourly billing or percentage billing or retainer billing, we survive. That's how we pay our people. So it's not always easy to earmark funds to somebody that doesn't actively bring in, revenue every single day. But we look at it that if we can, use hopefully my skill sets and my people's skill sets to be a little bit more efficient, then in the end of the day, it actually works out the best for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add to that that through all of this, it became abundantly clear, not that it wasn't already, but from just like a senior leadership role to being able to know that we've got the ops team behind us, and that these the operational duties would have been separated amongst the partners, and each of us would have been responsible for doing some level of what that team does. And having them allows us to take better care of our client relationships, and then to really drill down and focus on mentoring the employees that we're best suited to mentor. And it frees us up to be billable. It really just, and it really makes life easier. It really does.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, are you ever firing clients at all?
Of course.
It goes both ways.
Of course. Yeah. We always joke, when we get to the point if we're not hearing each other anymore, then it's time for a breakup.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe one thing, it was kind of related to, training and kind of how you engage with your team. I guess I'm kind of curious. I've heard different things. Have you found that, with everyone being remote, I feel like there's a bit more attention just paid to kind of what people do. For me, sometimes it feels like it's maybe even easier to kind of evaluate an employee sometimes when they're remote, because you can get a sense of how well they're contributing. I don't know, am I just making that up? Do you kind of feel that, also, is it more difficult or is it easier, to just kind of evaluate where your employees are?
I think that I do see the point that you're making, and that I was initially feeling the same, which was that I have this metric and it's output. It's like, what are they delivering? Mm-hmm. And I was really, and especially being remote and not seeing people, I was forming ideas about team members based on what they're producing. And it comes back to the whole, like the working in a vacuum and needing to have a comprehensive picture of what people are doing. And it can't only be measured in output. So I had to take a step back from that and to do a little bit of a deeper dive into each person's role and what we need from them, and to help guide them towards, towards being the most efficient in their roles. Because there were certain people where it was like, I would found myself thinking, my gosh, what are they doing all day? Like, why is this not done? Why is this not done? And I just didn't have the whole picture. Nobody's sitting at home like painting their nails and going on fun outings because they can't do anything fun. So it's like, it's people are working. And when I had an idea in my head that somebody might not be contributing as much as I wanted them to, it really ended up being that I needed to look deeper into what their role was and what is coming across their desk, and to just manage the processes a little bit better to help everybody be successful, because it was very tempting to just measure on output, especially when you're not seeing each other. And there was just a little bit more to the picture than that. Plus everything Jay mentioned about trying to just being cognizant of what everybody has going on, whether we know about it or not.
Sure.
And you also have to understand what role everybody's playing, what point that they're coming in, how long they've been there. And the challenging part is when you hire somebody new, and you're doing it remotely, and you're doing it off of, frankly, a couple of, FaceTime calls. You would need to make the decision fairly early how that's going. And for us, depending on the role, and then we have hired probably 6 or 7 new account manager, bookkeeper level people. And we made the decision early on, and we did plan this in advance, that we were going to take one of our top people that was not only a top account manager, but was also top in terms of technology, and a thinker, because that's what I look for when I look for people is, do these people think? And unfortunately, I think 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, it's a curse. So I don't need people to do that. But this particular person was willing to step out of her comfort zone and work with all these people, be the exclusive trainer, not touched by anybody else until she said they were okay to, move on to the next. So if they were going to be on, if it was a bookkeeper that was going to be brought in and earmarked for a particular account managing team, they did not get trained by the account manager. They got trained by one person who was going to help us make those decisions, because that was going to allow us to have a much better feel of how that person was actually doing, and also had a much more consistent approach to what they were learning, because they're only getting one side of it. And we went to the person that we felt was best suited to do that. And she continues to have her own full desk. So it's not like she was training and training only. And I would then spend a tremendous amount of time after, not every single day, because I didn't want to overburden, but at least once a week, sometimes more, but at least once a week, speaking to each one of the new people, because I interview everybody that gets hired, every one of them. And so I knew I already had somewhat of a personal relationship with them, even though I had never met them. And I would ask them every week, how's it going? Are you getting what you need? Or everything that I promised you in the beginning, is that happening? Are you running into issues that you didn't anticipate? Is the job what you thought? How is the trainer doing? What is your relationship? And fortunately, every one of them has just grown dramatically. And the good news is as those people do, because it's been 6 months now, several of them have been gone into another team, and the account manager that gets somebody that's already trained, and they love it because they know they're getting somebody that's already way more skilled, and they didn't have to take the time to do it themselves. And if it's somebody that's a new account manager, that in cases where we've created our own team or a new team, we felt more comfortable that they already had a sense of what they needed to do, and they knew that if anything came up in any time frame while they were doing it, they had somebody to go back to that could help them through the process. So having that dedicated trainer on that side was really important to us, and that will continue on going forward. That's not just a COVID thing. That's something that seems to make sense, because in the end, it costs a little bit more because you lose some productivity in the very beginning, because those people are just learning. They're not doing stuff right out of the box. But we found that a lot of the people that were hired previous to that, they just got stuck into the situation. Nobody had the time to spend with them, and they weren't the best they could be. Some of them didn't make it. Some of them did, but we still don't think their efficiencies were as good as they could be. And we're even going back to some of those people now and taking advantage of this trader and saying, let's reevaluate. Let's give these people things that they didn't have the opportunity to have before. So it's that training and really paying attention to where that person is really important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny. If you listen to all we spoke about today, it becomes down to some very old-fashioned business sense, right? You have excellent people at all levels. Provide yourself with excellent tools for all the processes you need, and then provide an excellent product or service to your client base. I mean, that's what it's been like from day one, right? And so all we did was morph all these things into the COVID times, and we all kept our same, well, I'm speaking for myself, but asking you, we're all keeping kind of our same mentality we always had and providing the same excellence we've always provided. And that's just plain old-fashioned 1,000-year ago kind of business sense, I think.
It really is. And the minute you, at least from my perspective, the minute you take away the personal touch, the people, the caring about your people first, I always approach it that and you could ask anybody that I've ever interviewed, because I tell them they're more important to me as a person than they are as an employee. The employee part, that's sort of like a given. If they can't do the job, and like I say, I've had to, move people out as well as invite people out as well as I've invited them in, but they have to come first. They really, really have to come first. And, COVID is to some extent has, proven that point, because you've got to forget, I'm old. So, and I've never experienced anything like this in my lifetime. So people are seeing things and having to deal with things that they've never had to deal with before. So if there isn't somebody out there that's going, listen, we understand. This is not just a matter of telling somebody do it because I say do it. It's really, stepping back and saying, we have all these tools. We have all these new things. We have the ability to do all these things. But if you don't treat your employees with that certain amount of respect and dignity, then you're never, in my opinion, going to get really the best you can get from them. That doesn't mean you're going to always get the best. That's just the starting point. And you have to be a good listener. But frankly, I'm a dad. I got 3 great kids, and I've always prided myself on being a listener. And I think if you approach that in any level, whether it's a partner listening to somebody or it's an account manager listening to the bookkeeper, that's really the focus.
Here's a question from my good friend Daniel Farr. How are you guys? This is kind of detailed. How are you guys handling data aggregation for digital clients with multiple revenue streams, i.e. YouTube, Shopify, Patreon, licensing, brand partnerships? And are your people inputting data manually into the accounting system, or have you found a helpful technology tool?
Rachel, that's good.
Yeah, that is pretty specific. I get it. It depends. I mean, there are certain, on the YouTube side, if they're with, some of them are still with MCNs. If they are, we get some of them that are uploadable journals that are in Excel that we can convert. It totally depends client by client and what the data source is. And also what we want their ledger to look like and what we want their financial statement to look like, how much detail we really want in there. But we don't have a specific aggregating tool or anything for that type of data. Part of that is because we're not utilizing a lot of the data in the ledger, so we don't need it to go in at that level. But that's not to say that we're not utilizing some. So some of them is what we can do and getting journals that are uploadable, but generally speaking, no, we're not utilizing a tool for aggregation on that level.
And that's like the golden ticket, I think, in business. We'll do a whole talk on that.
Yeah.
We'll talk to these Zenith guys. Maybe they can whip something up.
A very interesting, very open-ended, many-year search kind of topic.
Yeah. And the Shopify stuff, I mean, we do have a lot with Shopify now, and we actually handle most things in shop. Like we're not putting the detail into the financial statement. We're just being very conscientious and thoughtful about what information actually needs to be there, and then utilizing other tools outside of our GL software for the other types of reporting that need to be done, whether that's sales tax or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We're at the top of the hour. Maybe one quick one just to wrap it up. What excites both of you about next year besides, going back to restaurants and seeing friends and family, basic stuff like that? What are you looking forward to? I think, within your firm and even business management kind of in general.
I'm most excited for all the amazing projects that my clients have had on hold for this. Things that they were excited about, things that they had planned to do professionally, and that all got delayed and pushed. And now we're finally seeing plans for things to start happening again, and production's going back into place, and things. There was a ton of development even during the whole 6 months of COVID, and I think that things are finally starting to happen, and that's exciting. And I'm one of the people that are looking forward to in some ways being back in the office. I know we've got people on both sides of the fence for that, but I miss it. I miss the office. I actually miss my drive. Like I miss all of it. And no matter what it looks like, I'm sure there's going to be some element of getting back into the office next year. And so that's one of the things for me too, besides all the cool stuff that my clients have cooking up.
The drive.
Yeah, I would say I'm mostly excited about the fact that we were a very, very close-knit group of people, our coworkers, consider them friends. And, we did constantly through every day, we always did something to try to keep the group, cohesive, whether it was, bagels every Friday morning that we brought in, a softball team, parties. We were very, very close, and people had great personal relationships. And I think people have really told me that they missed that part of it. So, there's people that I would see every single day, all day long, all week long, and I haven't seen them in 7 months. And even though I've talked to them, not being able to see them, it's a little bit different. So knowing how well things have worked and how business has grown and things continue to go, it's really exciting to know that you add that together with continued new business. And as Rachel said, clients working more, employees happier. As soon as this thing goes away, it's going to be, it's going to be amazing. And I think that's really what the exciting part is. What is to come.
Awesome. I'll join the SSBB softball team. I'll sign me if you're hiring for that. Let me know.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
We had so many injuries on that team. I don't know if you want
that's
to.
a liability.
Yeah.
Only imagine the injuries of those who think what they can do when they really cannot.
Excellent. Hey, well, thank you both of you. It was really good to have you. Your insight is huge. I think it was mostly business managers on the feed today. I think from throughout the U.S. But thanks for helping us kick off this series. Just a couple super quick things to wrap up. We are gunning for this business management virtual conference at the end of October. It's going to be a lot of topics like today. Actually, Rachel and Jay are both speaking on 2 different panels at that. It's all virtual, so it's not Zoom, but it's something else. A couple keynotes, 4 panels. I kind of referenced this celebrity side hustle type thing that's been popping up a lot. Tackling consolidation in the business management space. There's a lot of acquisitions happening and kind of roll-ups, and how that's happening. A panel with Zenith, is COVID the final blow to paper checks, and other deep dives into cybersecurity and some tech demos. So all of that is at trustedadvisor.la. You can check that out. The date is October 29th. So what is that, about a month and a half away or so? And I think, oh yeah, if you, since I said it was mostly business managers, so we are all ears. If you have topic ideas, definitely let us know you know, how it went today. If there were certain things that you would have liked to dive into deeper, just shoot us an email. You know, we would love to hear it. And thank you. I think we don't have the next one lined up just yet, but we expect to hopefully have one in about another live stream in about 2 weeks. So
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you very much.
all right.
Thank you
all.
guys. Take care.
Thanks, guys. You too.